goes by. Well, good morning again, ladies and gentlemen, and I thank you all for coming out this morning. And of course, I'm joined by Councillor Joe Mihevc and by Councillor Ana Bailao. And I just want to start off by saying that when I came to office 3 years ago, one of my principal priorities, in fact, probably the most important thing that had to be done as a prerequisite to getting everything else done, was to try and bring the city together and get over an era of very divisive politics that we had been through, which was divisive in many respects, including having different parts of the city pitted against each other. And one of the ways in which I wanted to try and achieve a state where people felt better about City Hall listening to them and to some of the concerns that applied to their part of the city was to create 3 additional deputy mayor positions beyond the statutory, the legally provided for deputy mayor, to make sure that different parts of the city could be heard from in that respect, and to make sure that I was in possession of information that would come from those people as really voices inside the administration and inside the council for their areas. And I was also very focused on making sure that Toronto remained a livable and affordable city. And that is why, at the same time as appointing the deputy mayors, I designated one of them, Pam McConnell, as the poverty advocate, because I knew that we needed somebody inside, again, the council, who was looking at the issue of poverty reduction all the time and taking our plan that we approved unanimously a couple of years ago and working on making sure it got implemented and making sure we took as many measures as we could to help lift people out of poverty and to help make sure that the effort to reduce poverty was real and that it was coordinated. We, of course, earlier this year were all heartbroken by the loss of our friend and our colleague, Deputy Mayor Pam McConnell. We lost a friend, and we lost a fabulous councillor who had history that went back a long, long way in the city, but I also lost a very strong and dependable deputy mayor and a very strong and dependable and forthright advocate for poverty reduction. And she was somebody who spoke up on behalf of the less fortunate in the city all the time. So we have to continue with that work. We have to continue on both ends of that work. One, to make sure that we keep trying to bring the city together. We keep trying to make sure that the era of divisive politics is behind us, and also to make sure that we continue to address as best we can the issue of poverty reduction and lifting people out of poverty together with the other governments and the private sector and the non-profit sector by whatever means we possibly can. So with the loss of Pam McConnell, who carried those 2 responsibilities, I wanted to move as quickly as was appropriate, but also as quickly as possible to have other people pick up her work. And in that regard, I wrote to the city clerk today, appointing Councillor Ana Bailao as the deputy mayor for South Toronto and Councillor Joe Mihevc as the poverty reduction advocate. And I want to just say a word about each of these 2 people. I will say about both of them, they are among the hardest working councillors. I can tell that from the work I see them do at committee, from the work I see them do at council, but also from the degree to which their presence at my office door, in my office, and picking up causes that are very important to them. In the case of Councillor Bailao, as you know, she's advocated on many things, but none more so effectively than on housing. And I think the results there speak to the fact that for the first time in a long time, we are achieving the targets. And again, people have written up various accounts and spoken up about, trying to argue with what we're doing. The bottom line is we're doing something that hasn't been done before, which is we are approving and funding and moving forward with hundreds of units of affordable housing for the first time. It just hasn't been done since those targets were set. And there is no argument with that, and I'm very proud of that. And that's in large part a tribute to the work that she's been doing on that, which is relentless. She's also been talking about Toronto community housing with me and with the board that she serves on and with other governments. She's been absolutely tireless in working to try and improve that situation. She was a key factor, I can tell you, in our having what I consider to be a breakthrough, where the province has come forward with the money that they're going to be putting into Toronto community housing. And again, that's not a story that's finished, it's begun. But I think the beginning of it was an important accomplishment that she deserves a lot of credit for. And of course, she also is very much respected by the housing community, as it were, developers, nonprofit organizations, housing advocates, and works very well with them. And so I now I'm very hopeful that she will continue that work, that she will obviously be crucially important to the whole of our accomplishments in that area, and are continuing to meet and exceed the targets that were set years ago. And I just think that beyond that, she will be an effective spokesperson and advocate for the South Toronto, the city, the old city of Toronto, as it were. Councillor Mihevc is somebody I think that you all know is up on his feet as often as is appropriate, and he never wastes time. He gets to the point when it comes to speaking up for the less fortunate. I can think, for example, of each year that I've been here. I've been through 3 budgets now, and his advocacy, not confined to this, but his advocacy in particular on behalf of the student nutrition program, and his advocacy caused me to go out and actually see the program. And it was thanks to the fact that he spoke to me about it. He came to my office on the first budget and said, he didn't shake his finger at me, but he said to me, you must invest more in this program because it makes such a positive difference in the lives of children and families in schools across the city. And so I did. I went out and saw the program and how it worked. It convinced me, just from the volunteers who were working there through to the kids who were benefiting from the program, and all the things we know sort of academically, if I can put it that way, about the effectiveness of these programs. And he's probably more familiar with the numbers than I am, but all I know is that on the budgets for which I've had responsibility as mayor, we have invested millions of dollars of additional funding into those programs to increase our participation in those programs, and I'm proud of that. And it was Councillor Mihevc who was the principal voice in my ear and visiting my office. And of course it hasn't been limited to that. He's a keen advocate on social justice issues, and of course he's been one of the key players in our newcomer issues and in our newcomer responsibilities. And again, these things are, as you all know, they're linked. Far too many of the people who are struggling right now in the city of Toronto with a number of issues, whether it's housing or just living their lives here, are people who are newcomers, and that's something we have to address, because we pride ourselves on the fact we are a magnet for people from around the world, and the degree to which we can integrate them successfully into our city is going to be something that's important. I will just also note one other file in which Joe Mihevc was a most welcome partner and helped me. I stood up early as one of the early, I think the first mayor in Canada to stand up and say we were going to be in the forefront of accepting and embracing Syrian refugees, but Joe Mihevc was right there from the beginning to make sure that we had the supports in place, and that we got supports from the governments and from some of the nonprofit agencies to make sure we could do as good a job as possible. And we still have lots of work to do on that, but I can just say his efforts in that regard were noteworthy. I want to say one other thing, beyond the fact that I know these 2 councillors are going to do a terrific job in these new responsibilities they have. I just want to say, in the case of Councillor Bailao in particular, it is not lost on me that the Portuguese community, which is a very substantial community in our city, I don't think has had a deputy mayor or a mayor yet, but now they do have one that is one of their own. And that is a source of pride to me as well. I've had a great opportunity, thanks to her, but going way back before she was even on council, to work with and get to know the people in the Portuguese Canadian community in Toronto. And they're very hardworking, proud people and great citizens of our city. And to have one of their own, a daughter of their own community, emerge as deputy mayor of the city, I think hope is a moment of great pride for them, as it is for me, because I think it's important in this great diverse city that we have people who represent really the people that we all serve, because the majority of the people we serve were born outside of this country. And I think that's a source of pride that we have people occupying these important positions who reflect some of that reality, because I think it will just help us to make better decisions and to have those people feel that people in positions of responsibility in the city are people they can relate to in that respect. So I'm just very proud and happy to have these 2 people take up these responsibilities. I'm happy to answer your questions, as I'm sure they are, so we can go to that. I don't know whether either of you want to say anything, because you're most welcome to do so. Would you like to say a word? We'll start with the deputy mayor. I mean,
yeah, of course.
Yeah,
of course.
Okay.
Of course. Thank you, Mayor. I'm going to be very brief. I'm humbled by the nomination, but I really know that I have big shoes to fill, and I really want to take this opportunity to once again recognize the work that my dear colleague and friend Pam McConnell has done for Torontonians, for her residents in her ward, but also what she taught so many of us, and I'm sure that Councillor Mihevc feels that way as well. I feel privileged to have worked with Deputy Mayor very closely, in particular the last few years while she had the poverty reduction and I had housing, and I definitely learned a lot from her. I definitely received a lot of encouragement from her, and I know that today she would have looked at me and she would have said, "Proud of you, sister." That's exactly what she would have said. So I know that we have a big responsibility as a council to carry all that, and given that we are right here in this ward, and this was the community that welcomed me when I was 15 years of age when I came to this country, and I think I shared this story with some of you, but I'm going to share it again. Soon after coming to this community, actually, a few days after, I was walking on Dundas with my mom, and I asked her where the slums in Toronto were. Because at that time in Portugal, there was a big discussion about the slums because we're getting rid of the slums. And for me, there was, that big divide, that inequality that existed. It was very present. And so she turned to me, and rightly or wrong, she said, "There's no slums in Toronto." And I remember being 15 years of age, and that sense of opportunity, of, oh my God, what city is this? Because in my mind, all cities had slums. All cities in the world had slums. That's the reality I knew. And to be in a city, to have a city welcoming me that had that sense of opportunity, it was so empowering and powerful. And when the mayor spoke to me about becoming his deputy, and we spoke a lot about housing and what we need to do on housing in the next year, I just went back to really what really brought me into politics, and it's about creating this sense of opportunity in Toronto, because only when everybody has opportunity in our city will we succeed as a city. And so I'm really looking forward to working with my colleagues, the new poverty advocate, to create this sense of opportunity for other 15-year-olds, for other people that are getting here, for the people that live here. Because only when we have decent and affordable housing, when we have fair wages, when we have true community building, when we have equity in our city, will we thrive as a city. And these were the values that brought me into politics. These were the values that have guided me in these years, and these will be the values that will guide me in the next few years. So I'm looking forward to continue the working with the mayor, with all my colleagues, to make sure that we continue the work that we've been doing. So thank you.
Ooh. Well, first, let me say thank you to Mayor Tory for trusting me enough to make this appointment. I know that you had big shoes to fill with Pam McConnell's passing, and I am delighted, actually, I am absolutely delighted to give it my best shot. Of course, I also want to congratulate Deputy Mayor Ana Bailao. Anna is our housing advocate, and it is wonderfully synergistic that her and I will be able to work together, and that we have elevated the position of housing advocate to deputy mayor position. Housing is a key goal of the mayor and of council, and I look forward for the next year at least to work closely on that file with you. Now about this appointment of the poverty reduction advocate. I am so pleased and excited in accepting this position. I think it is one of those positions where you can make a big difference in people's lives. Many of us have witnessed so many good things that have come when we work against poverty. I have listened, many of us have listened to the mental health survivors with, for example, the Dream Team speak of the profound difference that the word home has meant to them when they've gotten an apartment. When we have gone to the student nutrition program at a school in the early morning and see kids who perhaps have left their home without a breakfast, just gobble up their food, and we know that they're going to have a good day as a result, that brings a smile and a delight on everyone's face. When my adopted Syrian family finally found a subsidized childcare space allowing mom to go to English classes, and now she's getting ready to begin a community college to become an early childhood education worker. That is just delightful. When you hear an adult talking about having been able to access a rec program that saved him or her from a negative journey in life because they had a recreation staff that guided them and mentored them, that is a turnaround moment for that child. So I ask you, what greater joy can a counselor have than seeing these kinds of things happen? That is why I'm absolutely delighted with this.